Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet, and today, a discussion of the books that I keep. I have a lot of books. I have too many books, but I get rid of a good deal of the books that I have, so I don't feel so obligated associated with the books that I keep, but I'm getting to the stage where I need to go through and do another culling of books. And I'm also at the stage where a majority of the books that I've kept are actually books that I want for some reason, which is where it gets particularly curious. Usually when you're in a capacity to get rid of, a dozen boxes of books, you're also in a capacity where you probably bought too many books and you're just getting rid of books. But for me, there are some things that keep books on my shelves. One of the first things that keeps books on my shelves is age. The older books that I have are typically the books that I keep. When I go to throw them away, and here we're talking about books from the 1900s or earlier, that gets really difficult throwing away an old book. And a lot of these books are not books that you can access anymore. I mean, this is another thing that I do. I do a search associated with whether the books are easily accessible in the second-hand market, which means it's very easy to get rid of them with the view that if I opine in a future date, and I've done this with some books, I can actually go and purchase them through AVE Books or something like that, and I don't feel quite as bad in these circumstances. A few of the books I have are genuinely rare, and those I keep, and occasionally I actually buy duplicates of those books. But in general, a majority of my books, as I scan the shelves, are associated with some form of military history. They account for maybe 2/3 of the books that I own, but they are a substantial portion, and in large part it is the older books that I keep from this. Books that are close in proximity to the dates where the wars actually occurred, and also books that contain certain elements, certain unique elements, either different perspectives or different aspects on history than you capture in your general Wikipedia entry. And sometimes I've actually gone back to Wikipedia to compare notes associated with the books that I have and whether, that's represented in Wikipedia. Wherever I find a book, particularly a historically proximate book to a conflict, that is not in Wikipedia or contains some additional information, I tend to keep that book. So now we come to the problem where I have too many books, and I'm going to have to go through my books again and make judgment calls associated with what books I pass on. And I always give them to charities in this country. This is a big thing in the US, that you find charities that you like and you give books to them. Certainly in the UK, I had a good turnaround associated with putting books on eBay. And pretty well, in terms of light packing and light transport, I funded a good portion of our return to the US based on books that I sold. I like to think on some level that means that I look for relatively eclectic and occasionally books that hold their value, but in general it just means that there are other disgusting bibliophiles that no doubt want to get their greasy little mitts on books that I own. So, as time goes on, and I try to reduce, or dramatically reduce in some cases, the areas of shelves that I have, because space, even in a large house, becomes a somewhat curious commodity. I think the books that I'll keep will be the ones that have quirky, pictorial histories with little elements of text that are just irreplaceably interesting. And, in summation, I have far too many periodicals, I have far too many magazines. That is going to be one of the major culls that I do this year, because ultimately I've advised others to do this and it's time that I did it myself. In large part I can give them away, but also I've discovered magazines and charitable giving recently, and I think in this case I probably should do that, if nothing more to save shelving and reduce the space. So, aside from historical books, I think there's probably at least one more podcast to cover this idea, but for now I'll put in a standard short funk footnote that this will be continued in another podcast, no doubt. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.